What's up, you guys? Welcome to another episode of Hit Confirm. I'm Casey, joined by my great friend and also my co-host, Coach.
Everybody, thanks again for tuning in for another week of the Hit Confirm. So this is gonna be something interesting, but before we get started, I know we were talking earlier before the call, but I mean, tell the folks what you've been up to. I know, they'd like to know.
So recently, I've been working a lot, but other than that, like I took the day off for UI Goku for DBFZ because that's DBFZ is my favorite game and favorite anime, so I had to mess around with him when I first saw him, and it's amazing that they made a character so on the cusp of like broke. He looks broken, but he's actually not. Uh, it's amazing how they got away with making a character like this because that's a really hard thing to do if you think about it, you know.
I haven't seen
So
much of him, but from like the little I've seen, he definitely looks like he's interesting is the obvious term, but like he's definitely outside of the general patterns you'll get in a fighting game character, and he's something that is definitely kind of unique in how he operates, and so I think that's definitely cool to see. Hopefully, it doesn't like cause problems for the game or anything.
no, like it's funny that you say that because I kind of always refer him to kind of like or compare him to Biken from Guilty Gear. You're forced to play differently because he has an answer for every situation or pretty much every situation, and you can't autopilot against him basically. So he's still like in the realm of how the game works, where it's very RPS heavy, but it's heightened. So it's kind of like they gave this game its Biking. It's pretty cool.
I feel like that's like always the case with those types of characters. That they have like counters or some kind of parry or anything like that. Like you have like Biken and Guilty Gear, UI Goku and DBZ, and like Virtua Fighter. There's a character called Aoi, and she can like parry just about everything in the game. And so like the things that are usually rewarding, you gotta go. I gotta approach this much differently. I gotta use more throws, or I gotta bait them more, and it just throws off a lot of people's rhythm, and it just like it makes a lot of people mad, even if the character's not like really great. But the fact that
hmm
they can't go into their rhythm or autopilot, like you said, with the things they know are good, it drives a lot of people up the wall. Always found that a funny concept.
I always appreciated it because to me that was kind of like the people who make these type of characters. They're like, it wouldn't it be fun to force players to just like play differently, you know, their usual style instead of autopilot. I always thought that was kind of like the devs kind of like trying to help players get better. Always thought about it that way.
They're pretty cool in interpretation. But thinking, learning,
I mean,
what?
so like, many people, and this is kind of like where I want to go into for this episode is the set play. Many people love when when you get the knockdown, you have an advantage, of course, right? And it's pretty much been known since like ever since fighting games were popular and stuff. So like once you get like the set play, which is my definition of set play, is you're able to have this option and rotate the same option over and over again. And when you have a character like Baiken and UI Goku and how you pronounce her name? Awa?
Howie.
Aoi, like Aoi, ouch. We have characters like that. You can't continuously do your set play over and over again. You can't continuously rotate your option, and that frustrates a lot of people. And I can understand why because I'm kind of a big fan of set play myself. Um, Getting that reward off knockdown and then forcing your opponent to guess and putting them in that situation over and over again. But there's also another side to that, um, especially since the FGC has been growing. Spectators are involved. People just like in general, like games are getting bigger and tournaments are getting bigger. So now you have more people watching and seeing the game in its entirety. And if you constantly see set play all the time, especially in high level play, it will kind of scare people away from the game because they're like, well, I don't want to pay all this money just to get this far and just to lose that way. where it's like I'm not even interacting with my opponent. That can feel very intimidating. But on the flip side, it's people complaints are, well, I can't continue. I can't really play the game, or I can't really get my reward because now they have the option to mash and rotate their mash in every situation or possible whatever. So it's really hard to I think for how everything's switching from like the old generation to like new, I think a lot of people are still having a hard time realizing that, hey, games are gonna be a little bit more RPS. They're gonna be a little bit more force you to constantly think on what your opponent's next step will be, next move and attack, approach, or defense is going to be on and rotate. So that's really daunting for a lot of people.
I can agree to that because like that word. I'm glad you said what your definition of it was because mine was more or less, when I do something, I know what the ultimate result will be. Like if I anti-air you and throw a fireball, I know that if you don't DP, you gotta block it. I can put you in a scripted situation. That's how I define it anyway.
Right.
Um, but I like your definition as well, and I figured I put that out there, and you put yours out there. That's pretty good because we could talk on the same page. But like the thing I always notice is because back when Street Fighter 4 was out, and then Guilty Gear eventually rolled out and stuff like that, that was everything that was talked about in the game generally is like you get knocked down, you're gonna get smixed. The vortex was what it was called in Street Fighter 4, and that kind of term kind of carried over for that generation. And yeah, you got a lot of people who were like, man, I don't want to get knocked down and lose over and over again. And that was the whole cry. And I think it's just because most of the games that came out at the time were kind of focused on that, Mortal Kombat 9 and whatnot. But then we're starting to shift to something different. And now you get seeing the other side, like, yo, I want to get my reward, like you said. And it's like, yo, what is this? I don't want to go back to neutral. And you got other people kind of quietly clapping, like, yay. And so, like, I just think it's just like, you had one side of the room that was generally annoyed, and now it's just switching to the other side of the room. So it's like it wasn't so much the whole community shifted, but there's just like the thing that certain people enjoyed is starting to go away, and the thing that same thing that annoyed people is starting to go away. So they're like, okay, I like this. So it just depends on what side of the fence you're on. But a lot of people say, these are the death of games, but I feel like there's always been cycles, and there's always been some games in the generation where it hasn't been quote unquote set play heavy, and I feel like people just kind of overlook that for the massively popular games, and they look at that and they make that the standard. Like, that this is set play, this is it, or Guilty Gear Strive removing set play, GBVS is removing set play, but then you still got games that do that. They just may not be like the mainstream games that are out at the time.
Oh yeah, and what's crazy is when I think another reason why they're removing or we're having this trend of not so much set play in play is at high level play you don't really see it as much because the knowledge is there. They know how to get out of situations constantly and rotate their options. So it's a lot of back and forth. And from what I'm seeing from like the devs perspective, or from my perspective, what the devs are doing is they're trying to take that high level like spectating like approach and kind of give it to to intermediate players too and like lower level players. So like one person once they find out something, they don't automatically dominate the other player 24/7. It's kind of like so now like if you was to go and watch a stream, you can still see the back and forth versus this player is clearly like 20 times better. And I it's kind of hard to I guess to defend that now that I think about it because you're going to always have the argument there is you're always going to have players that are 10 times better than another player and they're going to run into each other in bracket. You're going to always have that. You're always going to see that that level of play, the difference between the level of play. So it's really weird that they're kind of trying to remove that, and but also I understand at the same time because it's less interaction and like as a spectator, it's kind of boring. Actually, it is boring just seeing somebody just play the game by themselves.
So I got two things. On the one hand, I actually agree with the spectator thing. I think that with how streams are going, how all the tours are going, if they're coming back, quote unquote, that's definitely a thing they're considering. Is how does this look to somebody who just doesn't know anything about fighting games, or they might know a little bit of fighting games. They plop down and they see this stream. What do they think of it? And I think that does go into it. But I think I actually disagree with you on one point, which is where you said you feel like they're trying to make the experience better for intermediate players versus the advanced players. But I feel like there's the side of set play where if I'm intermediate and I don't know all the nuances of the game, but I know my set play, I can knock you down. And sure, you can set your patterns and everything, right? But ultimately, if it's a guessing situation, it doesn't matter how good or bad you are. If you have to guess, right? If you're at the very top or the very bottom and I put you in a guaranteed situation where you gotta guess how you're gonna get hit, and there's like two options, that's kind of universal. If you pick a third option, you automatically lose, right? Like if it's a high low, that's a meaty or something, and this is also a safe jump. You have to pick your high low, right? Or if there's other defensive mechanics in the game. But at the essence, when you can make somebody guess, you're bringing them down to your level, and they can't be above it or below it. They have to look as you at the person. They can't just be better at the game. They have to be better at figuring you out and what you want. And you might not even have a easy to see pattern, but at the end of the day, you're under their power, and you can't take it away. Like if I learn Amelia setup, disc in the corner, they don't have meter. Whether it's Nage, whether it's you, whether it's somebody just picked up the game, that's oppressive. Like there's always going to be a power in it, and so you can argue that when there's games that take you back to the interaction, that the greater player, the person who knows the spacings, the anti-airs, and whatever, and the wacky confirms, they're the ones who are ultimately going to shine in it. So that's kind of the thing I was seeing when what you were saying.
Yeah, and it's just I guess when you have people who do their homework versus a person who has done less of their homework or like less experience, it's always going to come down to that, right? So I don't know. It's just I don't want, for me personally, I don't want the whole set play thing to be removed completely. Just make it so it's it's probably maybe more like meter dependent or something like that. And I kind of like for a DBFZ, for example, set play sort of was like more meter dependent. Because like for instance GT Goku, he's a good example of this. A lot of players would say that one half would say GT Goku is broken because he can do his level 3 and he can like do a like 4-way or mix up do whatever. And some people are like, they need to patch that, it's broken. On the other hand, some people are like, well, this game is too chaotic. We need GT Goku actually fixes the game because he can get to that point where he can calm you down and make you pay for your, decisions you made, for wrong decisions you made, and kind of pretty much show you, put it in your face, hey, look, you did wrong here. Now you're gonna get punished this way. And a lot of people, so the other half said that, and it's I guess for a game like DBFZ, for example, you kind of can tell where the devs want to see that game go, which is heavy in RPS. So they removed that. But it seems like a lot of other games are still trying to go on that path of almost like a competition of who can make the best RPS game. Now that I think about it.
I definitely see that, and because I don't know much about DBFC, but it seems like they've been edging it away from like guaranteed situations to this is really strong for you, but their opponent still has an out, and you can make arguments for either side, but I think that is interesting where you say like GT Goku presents a situation where you know what you have to do, you know where you have to play, you can't get hit, so there's a point where if he's in his main space, you gotta let him wild out a little bit instead of trying to challenge him back. And that ends up how a lot of those games play out. Actually, You made me think of something. Speed Kick said when you brought up the Goku GT Goku thing, where he was
Oh,
saying,
speed kicks.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Recently he was talking about Tekken 5 DR, and he specifically mentions like rather than a specifically balanced game or all that or all this lukewarm stuff, I'd rather have a game that has like five viable characters out of 30. If they're playing an awesome meta game, the players are amazing. They have their freedom to do whatever they want. I don't care if it's the same five or six characters. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to see like the awesome high level gameplay that ultimately results from it. And then you see that kind of concept play out in like Marvel 2. Like almost the whole cast of Marvel 2 is like not viable at the highest level tournaments, but people still love it. They still think it's hype because they took the cream of the crop and then they turned it into so much like zoning, rush down, all kinds of tech, and people don't really complain about I can't run my role. You team, people don't really do that. They just take it's there's offshoot stuff for sure, but for the most part, it's a top heavy game and it plays so intricately that people don't really think about it. And I thought that was an interesting concept. So if you have characters like GT Goku and others, and if they're just like really that amazing and then force these cool interactions, then is it really such a bad thing if you can't pick up a Jiren? I'm just spitballing names. I obviously don't know about DPSZ, but you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, you just made me realize it also gives only one concept to a fighting game when you actually go into that set play part constantly and constantly over and over again. Because characters don't get a chance to express themselves on a lot of times when they have those situations, and you get things like Marvel 2, where like most of the cast can't really express themselves because the team is such a top heavy game. So where do we go from here? Where do you what do you think we should like do? Should we go to the RPS situation, or how they've been going now? Should they have should they let you know, look, you can do put yourself in a very extreme advantageous situation over and over again, but it's going to take like a lot of meter or something like that, or should they just completely like remove it? Or I don't know where we should go from here, honestly.
I think that the thing that kind of gets lost is people get hyper obsessed with random things in fighting games, whether it be set play, how strong Annie is, or whatever the case is. But I think this is me personally. I think that when a game designer makes a game, they should pursue it how they want to. If they want it to be, wacky set play, you die in one hit. If you guess wrong, that's cool. If they want it back to neutral, that's cool. Just design your mechanics around it. Make it as fun as possible. And so the people who like that particular thing, they'll flock to it. And the people who like that other thing, they'll flock to it. Just make it a solid game based around what it is you want and make it as fun as possible and, see your design through. I don't think that, games necessarily have to follow a trend kind of like what we're kind of seeing with like mainline games. So if you ask me where you think they should go, I think they should go exactly wherever they want to go, and they shouldn't worry too much about what people cry about because they're always going to cry about something. You can't make a game that a whole group of people are going to be loudly upset about. Like you can't.
That makes I've always told people that I love a game for what it is. That's how I got into fighting games, because they clearly have a vision, and we're just here to like to just play the game and like express ourselves and with their vision with the game. Like for instance, you have Street Fighter, like Guilty Gear, um, this Tekken. I'm sure these games all have like some form or fashion of like set play in there, but they all are approached differently. So now, and that's the beauty of fighting games, right? We have like different options, and I think that's probably what the devs probably forgot is, hey, there are other fighting games out there. Uh, they they would take ideas from them, they still do, but now it's kind of like it's very bland on the ideas that they take and kind of how they go to it with the next one. They don't switch to they don't have it where it's unique to them anymore. Everything seems pretty much the same. So now when you have RPS, their RPS is pretty much the same in this game, or the next versus versus how they were used to do with like how I just was saying with set play. The set play is was different compared to the other games. So I think that's the problem that like we're having now, whereas because I don't mind the RPS, but you're starting to see it for is kind of the RPS kind of have like the same aspects in them from one game to the next, and where it's like it allows you to mash in this situation all the time or something like that, give or take. So like I just want them to do like how you just said to be more closer to their vision, and it's good that they're interacting more with their fans, and we get to like give our feedback. But at the end of the day, it's how they want to make the game with their vision, and we just have to be like confident enough that they follow through with it and execute it on it well. And obviously, we're gonna like take the game and break it down and into science and everything like that. But it's you can only take so much with the game, do so much with the game, and tell what the devs, I guess, what to do, right? So yeah, I just want them to follow their vision.
Yeah, I more or less I pretty much agree with that. And I add this random statement where I start rambling on. People to this day still play Hokuto no Ken on arcade system for tournament and Rambats and whatever. They still do that to this very day. Think about that actual game. Like you can't make a game as long as it like doesn't bug out and go back to like the main menu when you do a fireball or some broken stuff like that.
Right.
There's somebody who's gonna like it and enjoy it. Whether it's for the designs, how goofy the fighting game is, or whatever. But what I was gonna get at when you were talking about kind of the uniformity that's happening, I feel like that's kind of always been the cycle. So like if you go back to when Street Fighter 2 first blew up the arcade scene, right? How many basic ass 2D Street Fighter like games were there that played almost the exact same, where you had like a Ken and Ryu, you had like a big fat guy who did command grabs, you had the health bars work the same way, they had dizzies. They function very, very similarly. So I feel like this is something that's happened before. And then like
Sure.
once that kind of expands, then everyone's like, let me do something different. You got Fatal Fury that came out around the same time where it had the line system. No other game was doing something like that. And so like I feel like what we're gonna have now is like when everyone's going on with the rollback code and the uniformity of these games, and what's gonna happen is these games are gonna come out, people are gonna play them, they're gonna like them. There's somebody will, and then someone's gonna be like, I'm gonna do something different and stand out, and then it's gonna start that whole new cycle, that part of the cycle over again, where everyone's like, I gotta be creative, I gotta do something new. But right now we all just kind of hit that point where all these developers kind of converged on certain ideas. And now someone's got to look at that once that kind of expands to like, okay, well, I want my fighting game to do this, this, and this, and you ain't seen this before. Like one of the big ones to me was like Arcana Heart 3. Like that doesn't function like any 2D fighter. And I brought it up before, but it's like very aerial based. It's a very movement based, and it's not like they don't make anti-air strong on purpose because they want you, if you don't want to get jumped on, you move around your opponent and then you get the upper ground. So like that whole concept doesn't really exist in other fighting games as much as it does there. So like stuff like that, if people keep making stuff like that, and if you make it to a mainstream game, I think it would take off. So I think stuff like that will start happening again, where someone's like, I want this fighting game to be based on real life. If you get hit in the nose, you can't breathe. you start struggling. You get broke. You get your foot broken. You can't do this special move or something goofy like that, right?
I feel like the wrestling series were getting close to that, and because I remember playing like SmackDown versus Raw series, and like you can injure like your opponent's like arm and stuff like that, and I always thought that was a pretty interesting and cool concept, and I'm sad that they didn't continue that. Maybe they did, I don't know, but I would have loved to see something like that, what you just said, like where you can break somebody's bone or something like that, and you can't use it no more.
It would be interesting.
Now that button's out, you can't use that. You can't press that button.
I remember me and the Ujo, it was Dogi, Black Star, me, and Kuja. and we were talking about the theoretical Virtua Fighter 6, where it was like so realistic. Like you hit a character, they fall off the stage and get a concussion, and then they're blocked off the character select screen for like a week. I don't know if any game will go that far, but kind of bringing it back to set play. What I kind of feel ends up happening even when games take it away, people start squeezing it out. Like
That's true. Yeah.
like when they get an anti-air and it goes into reset. All right, now I know I can throw this fireball, and I mentioned that earlier. And then, or like in the Guilty Gear Strive situation, I've been watching a bit of footage and catching up with it. Like a lot of people have been speculating, like if I knock them in the corner and don't do the wall splat, I can get this kind of set up. So people will kind of start squeezing it out little by little, and then as they learn the mechanics, of like there's ends up being some kind of weird cancel or something like that where they could put them in a guessing situation, people will find it and they'll turn it into something. It may not be like something you can kind of rotate on somebody over and over again, but you can put yourself in a situation where it's like, yeah, you can guess, and if I'm wrong, I might lose. That's how Sam Show is. It has set play, but it's sort of like if you're wrong, you either lose your advantage or you might just get fully punished, but you can still put them in an actual guessing situation. It's just the stakes are higher for the person on offense, as opposed to some games where you can set up safe set play, and for you as the attacker, it's more or less in your favor, even if they defend against it. Like their reward is they get to live. They're right, and they got to guess the next situation, which may not be as strong as the initial set play, obviously, but they're still at a slight disadvantage. So that concept exists. So I think people will always find something, even if it's not the same thing they had before.
Yeah, man. People, and also at the same time, like I would like to see more characters, like or more games take the approach of like the whole, I guess, Biken and UI Goku style, because I find it interesting when you see people say, "Oh, I gotta block. Why do I have to block on my offense?" And it's like, it's just like you just said, the stakes are higher. So like, if you get hit because you're trying to autopilot, then you could put them in that situation again. You could just call them out, and then once you call them out, they're in that situation once again. It's just a little bit harder. Got to think a little bit more.
For sure. It's like, yeah, like you said, it's like, I gotta stop and wait on my wake up, which sometimes you gotta do, right? If it's not like DP safe. But in general, when you have a character that's like has all these counters and stuff, you gotta like,
I love it because it wakes you up. Honestly, personally, for me, like when I was fighting a UI Goku not too long ago, he has this mechanic. He's the only character in the game that has this mechanic where if he techs, he can hold light and medium, and he'll just teleport, and it's like invincible for a couple of frames, and he'll just punch you. And if you're sleeping, he'll catch you. And there've been a couple of times where he's caught me, and I'm like, oh, I never said, oh, this is cheap. I was to myself, I was like, okay, yeah, all right, okay, you woke me up. I gotta be on my toes. I gotta make sure I call you out, because you can call him out, So it's very interesting to see that type of concept be worked. I was gonna ask, because you've played Faust and Guilty Gear, and now you're messing around with Johnny. Do you have any like favorite archetype of characters like that does set play?
So with Faust, I picked him because he was simple. His combos weren't that hard, and he was kind of like the Chun-Li of the game, where he focused on mid-range pokes, and he had to commit to a degree, and that ended up being the thing I always played at the time, and it was the safe pick. I was either going to pick him or Soul, and I ended up picking him. And what I found out later is that he has all these space control tools, these rush down tools, and then he can also knock you down. And if the dice roll right, he can put you in really dumb situations. And I was like, I didn't realize that till later. And then I was like, more and more like, oh, this character is really dumb. And that just kind of was a coincidence, because I never focused on that at first. And then I was like, whenever I do this string and they block the hammer, and I can just run up and do this, and then other people in the Discord were like, yo, if, you got the poison coming up, or da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, yeah. And I started thinking of ways like, how can I mess with this? Stagger throw, you do your FDC mix-up, or you can just, stagger 6H. And it's like, I never really thought about mix-up before until then. So it was just a coincidence that he had something like that. And I ended up exploring it, and I go to Johnny, it's like, he's generally not... From what I can see, he's generally not, I'm going to mix you up, make you guess. He's more like, when you get up, I'm still going to be in charge. He's just like, I'm standing here and I'm threatening.
To
That's
me, Johnny is like the peak of like footsies, and I know some people might get upset about that, but what I mean is he does his job so well of playing footsies, he doesn't need to do anything else.
Yeah, like he does have like guessing situations, like you could do this Y hand or Y or C and whatever. But in reality, you get just as much, almost as much power. Just be like, I'm gonna stand right here where my buttons connect. So you gonna wake up if you press a button, you might die. It's just like he uses his presence as a
Yeah.
deterrent, and it's really weird and bizarre because I was like when I first started picking, I'm like, okay, how do I deal with wake up stuff? And I was like, you got safe jumps and stuff, which with Blitz is not as strong as in other 2D games. But I was like, I could just sit here and put a button on and wake up outside of their DP range. I was like, that's actually really good. If they jump, assuming I have the reaction, I could just throw them back in the corner. And it's just like, yeah, you actually just have to button me back the right way.
Yeah.
It's like I don't have like the traditional, here's the high, low, here's the left, right. Well, I mean, he does have that concept, right? But it's more like,
Right.
if he gets the mist on you, and he can do that, stagger stuff. So, like, a lot of staggering, that's his general mix-up. But it's not like he's forcing, like, the immediate guess on you. He's like, I'm just standing here. What are you going to do about this? What are you going to do? It is like...
It's such a beautiful thing when he gets called out. Sometimes just standing there, because sometimes if the Johnny player's not ready, they might IAD on like he's throwing out a far slash, and now they IAD on a far slash. And it's like, whoa. They had the presence of mind and the spacing to IAD there and punish him for whiffing that far slash.
Yeah, that's how it's generally how you're gonna get around them because you can't go through them usually, and
Yeah.
so like yeah, when you make that call out and he's the character who's made to be helpless once he gets swarmed on, like for all his power, if somebody's on top of you and they got fast buttons, you don't do much.
Yep.
So that's an interesting concept. So like I went from like here's the set play to all right, so where's my optimal positioning? Where do I want to put them on the ground? And usually, because even when he knocks somebody down, he might have like okay, I gotta hit him into a coin. So like when I get up, I'm even more intimidating.
Yep.
Instead of like here's the mix up. So it was two different concepts. Like when you look at those characters, that's not what you would think you'd find. But yeah,
That's why when I played Guilty Gear, I played a lot of Johnny, because there were two different ways on how to approach. You can still approach set play with both those characters. Obviously, we all know that way, approach a set play. But the way they approached it were totally different. Like it was different sides of like, the coin. So it was pretty cool though, having like, just ID on you and you gotta guess high or low, and then Johnny it's like, well, you gotta guess when I'm gonna press this button or not. and and then you have that same thing with like command grabs, right? Somebody asks, what does a command grab character do for set play? He or she doesn't have a fireball, or they may not have like the best normals in the world that they can like cancel out of or whatever. And it's like, well, their intimidation comes from simply grabbing you and unblockable
yeah. Usually those
and
characters
doing
get
big damage.
yeah. Usually those characters start they do their OKV and safe jumps right, like Pod, Zangief when he gets the right move. It's like I'm just gonna jump on you, so you can't DP me. So what am I gonna do when I land? Am I gonna do the actual safe jump? Am I gonna empty jump and do a low? Am I gonna empty jump and do that unblockable? So because you can't tech me. So that's the kind of interesting. Like it's interesting how characters manifest the power they get when they win, even in the games where they're heavy in set play. Because I'm trying to think of an archetype that's like really odd.
Where the set play is there, but it's like it's a very odd type of character.
Yeah. Like I guess the only thing I can think of is like maybe like some weird projectile Oki, but
Wouldn't that be Faust? Because Faust
yeah, that's
has
perfect.
RNG with his items.
Yeah, yeah, he's definitely because like I even said it himself. I wasn't expecting to be like opening people up with set play with this character when I first picked him up. You're actually right because it's like they don't know what's gonna come out, so they have to like guess at that situation. And if on knockdown, they can obviously see what's about to happen to them, and so they have to take what's ever happening. because you have enough time to block. And so yeah, you have interesting cases like that. And then I think about games like Samsho. So there's also games like Samsho where there's set play, but the characters have
Hmm.
different ways. And I think this is in Blaze Blue, like the mainline series. I would need to be corrected if I'm wrong. Where they have so many teching options that you really got to think about where they're going to be. You still have, and I guess that's DBFZ too, right? Because you have multiple tech ways, and so you have to know which ones to cover. And it's not a straightforward. They're going to be directly on the ground outside of the level threes where I know where they're going to be. You still sometimes you still have to guess where they're going to be with your set play. So I guess you like I think you were referring that to RPS. So
Yep.
now go ahead.
No, I was gonna say no. Like that's exactly what it is. It's like you can, if you can guess there, I guess on the RPS and repeatedly putting them in that situation, then it's like, well, now they got them in the set play.
Yeah, instead of like the direct layer where you get exactly what you want, you gotta kind of go through an extra layer. Like where are they gonna move to? Okay, they moved there. I called it out. Now they gotta guess, and now they're gonna get hit. So that's
Yep.
so I guess that's where some games will do. And I actually think when you're actually thinking about Oki or set play, I was actually thinking of one interesting one. Like is back in the old Street Fighter games, especially Street Fighter Alpha 2. Like Sakura, you know what her set play was?
What was hers? Because I actually I don't remember Street Fighter Alpha 2 in terms of like itself, set play.
So she knocked you down, and then she did an ambiguous cross up over and over again. So
Uh,
like if she hit it, she did a combo again, and then it's a cross up. This is like it's so basic,
it
right?
sounds like typical Sakura actually.
Yeah, that's how she's always been based around. It's her cross up jumping forward. And in Alpha 2, it's like so direct where it's like da 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 da. She hits you, gets a combo. It's like you're actually guessing left or right. It's so basic and simple, but it's so powerful because you can't because it's also kind of a safe jump because your DP will whiff. So what you typically try to do is guess the block, and then she's gonna come down as plus, right? And so she's gonna if she sees the block and doesn't confirm, she's gonna try to tick throw you, which throws her strong in that game because the way you reverse them is you well it still has the softening rules, right? You don't get a full tech, you take like half the damage and then you go tech out. And so if you don't want to get thrown, you gotta like tack in a reversal real quick, and if your character don't have a DP, you usually have to tack in a super real quick in between that window. And it's like it was like I'm thinking about it, it's so in that kind of game, it's like yeah, she just did left right, would have jumped forward and then comboed you and then tick throwed you and then did it again. And it wasn't anything complicated, right? It wasn't like let me throw this fireball, let me burn this meteor into this system mechanic, and then here it comes. So like, nah, you got knocked down. Now I'm gonna jump on you.
Or we could take it further with how like it was pretty simple in ST where throws were set play. You had like Balrog or like Dowson or something where they'll like throw you, and then you don't know what side you're gonna end up on. You had like I think for like DP characters you had like one frame to get out of it. So like that like now that you mentioned it, it's like set play is still here. It's just harder to do consistency and on a consistent level, and it's just it's there. Like you just got to find a way to do it, because I see people still do it in all crazy games like DBZ, and people thought there was a point where people it was like, oh, Street Fighter 5 is like it's hard to find set play. Then they found throw loops.
And,
So it's
and
like
fund the blockables.
yeah, but so you can still find it. It's just like you gotta again goes back to like the homework of and then end up being that if you want to be a better player than you were yesterday. So I think I think if people shouldn't worry about set play if the game's gonna have set play or not. Like you said for Strive, you started seeing that with the whole IDFD mix up. I don't think people should worry too much about set play. I think honestly, there's not too much worried about in general with that stuff. Just gotta like put your homework, go to training mode, and it takes a little bit probably a longer time than finding that throw into reset into throw into reset or a knockdown into ambiguous cross up like alpha in STs. So
Yeah, one thing you actually brought up that I was actually going to mention next, resets. That's like the obvious thing people go to when there's nothing else in the game or everything else is kind of dry. That's
Yeah.
usually what they go to. Like they get the air reset, or they drop the combo here, and then they do some kind of guess, or oh, the other one, like in DBFZ, there's one situation where you're forced to guess, right?
Yeah.
Where Majin Buu does his fat roll on you, and he restands you, and he puts you in a
Hmm.
guess. Like that's how that's how NRS games typically operate, and that's the reason why like Batgirl and Injustice was so godlike, because she could just constantly restand you, put you in a high low, restand you, put you in a high low. And so like there's always like these really weird situations, and it's not always like the ones people think of immediately. I guess like when you say consistency, the thing that came to my mind is that some games it's very scripted. Like in Guilty Gear, for some characters
Yeah.
you could tell it's very scripted. Like when Milia does this, and throws the disc, you could tell like it was completely meant for that. It wasn't something that somebody just like, yo, I wonder if this miscup can give me a high low. You could just tell that's what they intended with the Bad Moon and all the other stuff. And so stuff like that you have to find. So when it's not less scripted, yeah, like you said, you got to start getting creative, doing your homework. But that's actually something that I'm curious about with Strive, and I'm gonna ask you what you think of this.
Hmm.
So we're saying that there's no direct, scripted, easy access set play that we can see, right?
Right.
So what if they add a character? We'll say Milia, since we haven't really seen much except the trailer,
Right.
and they make her specifically like the traditional set play, but then they make her extremely weak in some other areas. Do you
Right.
think that would be an interesting compromise? Like instead of just making set play a game role, you make it a character specific role where that's the thing they do, but they may be weak elsewhere. But if they get their hit, they get to run it. Do you think that's something they may do? And whether they
I
do or
wouldn't be
not, do you?
surprised if they did it.
Okay, okay,
Because I kind of mentioned this earlier, where like I guess it's kind of like I guess Guilty Gear got to a point where it's like, well, you know how like actors they get typecast and they're like, oh, they play the same role over and over again. I feel like Guilty Gear for was just starting to get typecast with that whole set play. The game is just known for set play role, and I can kind of see you as a dev and as a person who's developed probably from their perspective how that can be annoying because it's like, well, I want to sell my game to more people and it's just known as this one thing. Like, yeah, you can have the hardcore people stress to the other people. It's not just known as this one thing, but it's generally when you think of Guilty Gear, you think of set play, right? And variety of characters that can go into it. So a lot of that, I can see how like that can scare or be kind of hard to push for for new people to consume. So I wouldn't be surprised if they added like if Milia could do what she could do, and then another character can do something totally different. How they approach the game, and like you have your Milia with the set play, but then you have like the Viking that comes next in Strive, and then you have like another weird like Faust or Command Grab or Zato like character that comes next, but they don't have like they're not really focused on set play. They're focused on whatever thing they're doing and on how to like manipulate the game the way they try to manipulate it. And I think that's what the core of what they're trying to do with Strive. They're not trying to be typecasted as that same uh, Guilty Gear set play. They're trying to have that still uniqueness, like Daisuke said. They're still going to have that uniqueness with the different characters, but the way the characters wins are completely different. Like from your Morgans to your Wolverines. Pretty much the example I'm trying to say. So
I get you. Yeah, because
yeah,
my question was more like more based on kind of what you say, like could they make it just like her character trait? Let me set play you, but my normals are really bad or something like that. Is that something you think would be fair or interesting or something like that?
if her win condition is completely different and it's possible and it's not like really bad or anything, then yeah, I could see it happening.
Okay, I'm trying to think of something else. I think we covered most things because like what I was actually thinking about was like Killer Instinct, where you have characters like Mira, who can just do all kinds of mixes, but at the expense of using her life bar to do it. But no other characters can do something like that, but they don't have to spend their life. So like she's running the mix on you, but if she's wrong and gets hit,
Hmm.
like her whole bar. You know, like it's kind of like the Great Life in Street Fighter. She builds up like
Right.
this Great Life, and she gets like these really strong mix-ups and movements. But if she's wrong and gets hit, just like Chip, and then someone can just like cash it all out with one combo. And so like she's basically made into be a strong set play character who's not allowed to be wrong. And so I thought that was an interesting concept because that concept's not generally in the game. It has strong offense like staggers and stuff, but that
Right.
whole think concept doesn't really exist like it does in say a Guilty Gear. But she specifically does it. But if she gets too carried away, she dies. So I thought that was a pretty cool concept.
I think Abba, she can lose her health and she sacrifices her health just to be a quicker. She pretty much turns into a whole totally different character. Um, but so I think that concept is kind of there in like the older Guilty Gear, but it didn't. But then again, like I said, it always goes back to that. Once she gets in her advantageous position, she's gonna like set play you to death with the way she goes. So, but no, I would like to see characters manipulate the game the way they do, kind of like how like the Avar, the character you said from KI, where they use their health bars to kind of like Oh, one thing I feel like Blaze Blue kind of like capitalized on that totally different way characters win, uh, different approach on how they win the game. Um, cause yeah, you had your tech options and everything like that, but if you look at Blaze Blue and see how like a Ragna wins versus how a Arakune wins, it's like totally different.
Yeah.
And another good concept, Amane chip you to death, like completely chip you to death. So yeah, I would like to see more characters be like where if they have a tool, uh, it's just heightened, right? Like how,
Yeah, it's their signature move. Like it's the thing they're gonna do.
hmm
Like like if Amani forces me to block, my health's gonna go away. So I'm incentivized to move. I know
yeah,
that Arakune is gonna try to get the curses going. So I gotta go in on them and keep them contained. So it's like you have an idea, and it's like, and then it's like everything. It's like double-edged sword because it's like when your character's game plan is just so well countered against another character, it can feel so miserable. It can feel
yeah,
so miserable. Guilty Gear kind of suffers from that too, because every character kind of feels like they're playing their own game to a degree. Because
hmm
even if they have a similar destination, the way they get to it is different. It's like the buttons and way you'd move as Faust is completely different from what you would do as a Chip. Like the way
yeah,
you would think about how to punish somebody, like whiffing a button or jumping at you is or moving around in a certain way is different. Like your mindset is different. Even if you ultimately you're trying to get a knockdown or damage or whatever, like the way you're playing that, like I don't want to use this term, but I have to say like they're playing their own game. And like you said, it just basically means they have their own win conditions and their own ways of doing similar things.
yeah. So yeah, I feel like Strive has a huge potential, not with just the netcode, but by the game have taken on a whole different identity and not being that type of game where it used to be, because it could still have that uniqueness and you can still fall in love with the characters like how original Guilty Gear is, and I think that's still there. That's one thing that I felt when I was playing the game, but we'll see what happens with how they do with each character individually from here on out. With more time since they have more time with development. So
Yeah, they went out and put that delay, and they announced that they're gonna look at the feedback and they appreciate it. So we'll see if what actually changes, like gameplay wise and stuff. So it'll be
yeah,
interesting to see where it goes.
yeah.
It's like if you look at the
Uh,
go ahead.
I was gonna ask you a silly question, but I'll ask you after this because it's kind of like almost off topic.
I was just gonna throw a generic statement. Like if you look at all the games passed, and usually any kind of franchise, they almost never play the same. Like if you
Yeah.
look at the original Guilty Gear, the original Sin, or you look at like Guilty Gear X, it may not be, or Guilty Gear Asuka. You might go, well, that doesn't count, but it was there. It was a game that people could play, and so like what you experience may not. It's usually the last game you were attached to. So I think if you really think about it as a whole, games always change and evolve, even before now.
Yep. And they're still gonna, even if they change a lot, they're still gonna have some type of identity that reminds you of another game. Like it just occurred to me not too long ago that all DBFZ is just Marvel and Guilty Gear put in one game.
True, true. So what was the
Yeah.
question, man?
I was gonna ask you if you could see what game that what kind of like archetype or game type or fighting game type or whatever, where it's just a 3v3, a 3D fighter or 2D. What anime would you like to see get turned into a whatever uh, fighting game?
Okay, so this question. Let me think. Let me think.
Because I already got mine, so like that that pretty much answers that for me. So like I want to know what yours would be.
All right, so you actually mentioned something earlier about wrestling games, and there was like outside of the traditional ones, like with the WWE and stuff, you had like
Hmm.
Slam Masters, what Capcom did, which is kind of a combination of wrestling and Street Fighter. So I would like to
Hmm.
see a type of game like that with Kinnikuman characters.
Oh.
Because that's a wrestling manga where like there's super powered wrestlers and stuff like that. So like blend, and there's also another game on the PS2, which is kind of a 3D fighter, but I want more of a kind of a 2D style where they had a lot of their signature moves, combos, and and they had tag team matches in the manga. So I would like to see that kind of concept too. So I would like to see that be as serious as the 1v1 mode too. I want to see a game that has multiple modes be taken seriously in both modes. But that's my answer. Kinnikuman. What about you?
Oh, I actually played a PS2 game, a PS2 game, years ago, and it was a blast.
It's
Once I
probably
found out the, hmm?
was a Grand Prix.
It might have been. Once I found out the name, I'll let you know. You probably already know it, but it's that game. I still think about that game to this day. That game was so awesome, and I would love to see a Capcom or just or Arxis or anybody make like a 2D fighter for that. That game would be so sick.
All right, man. What about you?
Uh, I got like I said, I already got mine. It's like because I came into the scene loving Marvel too, and I've had a love for DBFZ. All right, funny story before we go. When they made Extreme Bokuden on the DS,
Yeah.
the DBZ game. That's the 3v3 DBZ game on the DS. I remember seeing that, and I was like, Arxis made it another DBZ game because they made Supersonic Warriors on that Game Boy Advance, but this was totally different. I was like, I'm gonna email at Namco Bandai every day, and I did this like one year. I just would like go to class, come back home, email them, not just make sure I get that. That was my routine. Email them. Could you guys please make a 3v3 fighter on the console? And I asked some of my ideas and stuff like that. And then the CDBFZ is like a dream come true.
I actually
So
remember you telling me this.
yeah, and I always like when I first saw NBC2, I was like, man. And I got into the scene. I was like, I would love to see a 3v3 Dragon Ball Z game. So
And it just
yeah,
came from
this is
heaven, no?
yeah. Dude, I screamed when I saw that because there was no leaks that I knew of before. No, there was one leak and I didn't believe it. Literally one leak before the showcase at E3, and I did not believe it. I was like, it's fake. And then they showed the trailer at that Microsoft press conference at E3. I screamed. I was like, jeez. I
Finally!
don't know. I was like, I'm sorry, Guilty Gear. I love you. You got me ready for this game, and every other fighter that came before it. So
Man, I know a lot of people like they want their dream character with their dream moveset in a game, but you got your dream game in the style that you wanted.
yeah,
It's like,
so
oh man.
yeah, so there's everything all going. So like, I can't think of any other anime besides some probably like something weird like maybe like Cowboy Bebop being a game, but that probably wouldn't be a fighter. That'd probably be something else. So
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to choose from, and you can even choose universes. But yeah, I'm glad you got your dream game, the game that you're passionate about, because that I feel like that is extremely rare.
yeah, yeah. I have talks with people, and I see tweets every now and then. I can just see like people don't they have a lot of options in for the fighting games that they play now, but it doesn't seem like they have like that passion for it. And part of it is like the coronavirus, but even before coronavirus hit, I kind of like see people as like once like their game kind of like died out competition wise, they didn't really couldn't find anything else to play. So,
Yeah, some folks out there
but
struggling.
that's okay if you still have your game though, right? Like you still play your game.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what it is, right? Because you know, some games you might not
Yeah,
have like the easy access online or something.
yeah, that's true.
But
It
you know,
is what it is.
yeah, we can't always be satisfied in life. Sometimes, like when it happens, we just say, hey, you know, we're lucky. We're gonna enjoy
Yep.
it for what it's worth.
Yeah, if DBFZ never would have came out, I probably would have been playing just Guilty Gear and Street Fighter Five. Honest, to be honest with you.
That's what's up. But you got anything to say as a parting words, man?
No, everybody. Well, everybody be safe out there. I know it's hard times still, and a few places have already opened, or a lot of places have already reopened. A lot of states have already reopened during this pandemic. So just stay safe. Wash your hands, because people still don't wash their hands. I don't know, but yeah, yeah. Just stay safe and stay healthy, and make sure you keep your loved ones safe and healthy too.
Yeah. So
But
ditto to what he said. Don't get set played by Corona.
it. Force the Corona and RPS situation.
Yeah. You know, protect yourself at all times. But yeah, I got nothing else. So thank you guys for tuning in. Um, I'll have this up either today or tomorrow. I'll probably do it tomorrow because I feel like more people are around, and rather than just kind of putting it out there at night. So
Yeah, hit them up in the morning. They wake up and they see it bright and early. They yawn and like, hit confirm.
yeah, you
Nice.
know, you working from home, just places in the back, play it in the background. You know, we got you, we
Yeah.
got you. But other than that, all I gotta say is peace out.
Yeah, you guys take care. Thank you for listening once again. We'll see you next time.